Good morning. Today is the 19th of Tevis, the 19th of January. And we're really at the very, very end of this mitzvah that we started. I think 31 classes, 31 days. Not really 31 days, it's more than a month and a half now. We had a whole week that we didn't learn. Okay. So we talked last time about how Shmuel was the next prophet actually after Moses. There's even a question I thought about on Shabbos. Why is the book of Judges called the book of Judges? It should have been called, like at the very end of Yoshua, what does it say? Something like that. The prophets who were left over from Moses' time, there were those who lived after Joshua. Joshua was an old man when they came out of Egypt. He was already, he's 80 years old if I'm not mistaken. Not 80, no. He was 110 when he passed away. It wasn't, I think he's around 70. So, no, it could have been 70. It has to be 14 minus 70, so he was 56 when they came out of Egypt. There were younger men also that must have been much younger, because everybody was over the age of 20 perished in the wilderness. So there must have been much younger men. And they were all prophets that were subsets of Moses. And Shmuel was the first new prophet. And so there's a whole question, why isn't the next book after Joshua called prophets? It should have been called prophets. The whole thing is called prophets, from Joshua all the way to the end of Yirmiyahu, or Yechezkel, depending on who you want to put at the end. Malachi, he's even later. All these were prophets. So why is the next book not called prophets? It should have been called prophets. So all the judges were prophets. Why are they not called prophets? They're not called prophets because they're not prophets. They have prophecy, but their role is completely different. They're not prophets. The next prophet after Moses is really Samuel, Shmuel, and he is the one who rectified Netzach. And then we get this, we didn't get into this whole issue, but most of the prophets are described as receiving their prophecy through Netzach, through victory, through this determination. ולכן נאמר לא פקדתי את אשר עשה על עמלק, כי אז יש יכולת להילחם בעמלק העומד לנגד בחינה זו דניצוח ושליטה כנען. And as we said, that's why Shmuel was the one who was entrusted by God to destroy Amalek. Because only when the Netzach is rectified can you fight against Amalek. Because again, that's what Amalek is trying to, he's trying to win against. So you can't go with a blemished Netzach into the war with him. You have to go with a very strong Netzach. And we said that this has to do with his upbringing. That he's the first person that we see that was brought up from zero, from age zero, in the tabernacle. We said the same thing is true about animals, because whatever is here below is also above. So if the Netzach was blemished below, it was also blemished above, and all the animals are derivatives of these angels of the chariot. All the domestic animals, all the behemoth, they come from the show, the ox in the chariot. And all the wild animals, they come from the lion, and all the birds come from the eagle in the chariot. So they also they inherit this blemish, and that's why we don't eat the gid הנשה. ולכן אמור הז"ל, אין בגידין בנותן טעם, אלא עצו והתורה אסרתו. So there's an important thing, that if something doesn't add taste, how do you know if something is kosher or not? What's the main criteria? I'm not talking about whether it was shechted correctly or whether it's prepared correctly. I'm saying, how do you know if, for instance, some milk falls into a meaty dish? So how do you know if there was enough there? What's the real criteria? The real criteria is you have to taste it. And if you taste from the milk, then the whole dish is not permitted. So how can a Jew do this if it has taste already? So how would I know? So you say you bring somebody who's not Jewish, and he can taste it, and he can tell you if he tastes the meat or not, the milk or not. what happens if I don't have someone who can do that? So we have 1 in 60. The 1 in 60 is what the sages said instead of what the Torah said. Because not under every circumstance is it practical to have someone taste. More than that, sometimes we have what we call min bemino. Min bemino means that really you have milk from let's say from a donkey and milk from a cow. You can't really tell the difference. It's the same thing altogether, so taste won't help you. So you have to use this hashara, this approximation of 1 in 60. That's how the sages, but the original thing is that it has to have taste. If it doesn't give taste, it doesn't matter what it was. It's not part of the dish. It didn't do anything. For instance, a person throws a piece of wood into his dish, into his chont. He decides to throw a piece of wood inside. He doesn't have to check if this wood was orla or there's nothing. It doesn't mean anything because it doesn't give any taste. It doesn't do anything. So you say the same thing about the gida nasha, this sciatic nerve. Really, it doesn't give any taste. It's like a piece of wood. So why does the Torah tell you not to cook it? But rather, this is a decree from the Torah itself. Decree from the Torah that this sciatic nerve should not be eaten, even though it's not edible. It doesn't do anything to any dish. It doesn't add anything. And this connects back to what we said. The Netzach and Hod are like the arvei nachal, the aravot, the what do you call them in English? The not the myrtle branches, the other ones, the willows. The willows is a branch that has neither taste nor smell, nothing. So it says the same thing. The Netzach Hod, on the face of them, they have no taste. I mean, there's no sense in them. There's no understanding in them. All there is determination that this is what I want to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. Let me add one more thing that's not in here. That when you take all the different areas, all the different disciplines in human thought, in human wisdom, not Torah wisdom, and you correspond them to the Sfirot. So the correspondence is that in Keter we have art and music, and in wisdom we have mathematics, and in understanding Bina we have all the exact sciences. And then in Da'at, in knowledge, we put psychology. And in Chesed, we put social sciences. And in Gvura, might, we put law. In Tiferet is Refuah, medicine. When we get to Netzach, victory, what do you put there? It's Chinuch, education. Why? Because that's exactly the nature of education. The nature of education is to build the Netzach. That's what education is supposed to do. It's supposed to build the Netzach. And then continue on. The next one is economics and communications, and finally at the end political science. ובזה יובן מה שכתוב בזוהר, את גיד הנשה, ראשי תיבות תשעה אב. So it says את גיד הנשה. The Zohar learns from this word et, because et is a word that you can't even translate into English, and in Hebrew it's not clear why you need it. I always like to joke that in Russia they didn't use et. Nobody used et, even when they spoke in Hebrew. They didn't know. So you see Russians speaking in Hebrew, they don't use the et, because it's not a needed word. So the most famous Russian who was like this, because he was the one who was taped the most, probably, was Ben Gurion. Anytime you hear him speaking, he doesn't use the word et. It doesn't exist in his lexicon. So every time that the word et is there, we know also from the Gemara that Shimon HaPakuli, he learned from each et something. Every time it says et in the Torah, he learned something from. We don't know all of them, but we know some of the drashot. Et Hashem Elokecha tira. You should fear Hashem, your God. So what does he says? Lerabot talmidei chachamim. The et there is coming to include scholars of Torah. Talmidei chachamim. Ken ish v'kabed et avicha ve'et imecha. Honor your father and your mother. So what do we learn from them? Your older brother and your older sister, that you have to honor them also. Et achoto et kain. So we say because there's et there. Et achiv et hevel. There's et Kain, and then et Achiv et Hevel. So we learn from that Hevel had two female twins with him. They were triplet, actually. No, every et is something. So the Zohar continues this, and there's also drashot that could be very, very ancient. It says et gid anasheh, achen al ken lo yochlu bnei Israel et gid anasheh. Therefore, the Israelites will not eat the sciatic nerve, and said this et rashei tevot Tisha BeAv. So this et is Tisha Av, is the 9th of Av. Okay? We say Tisha BeAv. You say Tisha Av, the 9th of Av. Shegid ze echad mishasa sholet betisha BeAv. Each one of the, really, here it's not referring to nerves. Well, it's referring also to nerves. It's an important thing that we didn't discuss at all. It's a big topic in and of itself. But what does it mean when it says gid? The word gid in Hebrew means some kind of conduit.
You mean the actual...
Yeah, a gid. The word gid means a conduit. So which conduits do you mean? So we discuss in Kabbalah 3 types of conduits. There are the transparent ones, and the red ones, and the white ones. Okay? So what are they? The transparent are the nerves. We say that the nerves are transparent. The red are the blood vessels. They're also conduits. And certainly the sinews. The things that connect the muscles to the bones. Tendons. Yeah. Sinews, tendons. Yeah. It's not the same thing. I don't know exactly what the difference is. In any case, each one of them transports something else. The nerves transport brain energy. The vessels, the blood vessels, transport heart energy, you could call it. And the sinews, they transfer mechanical energy. There's 3 types of energy. We call this in Kabbalah, in Chassidus, we call this Or Chayut Koach. Light. The brain energy is called light. Relative to everything that's going on in the body, the nerves are conducting light. Really, it's true because it's electromagnetic energy. It's just going through chemicals, but it doesn't matter. It's the same type of energy. So that's the light. That's electromagnetic energy. Then chayut is life force. That's the blood. The blood gives the life force, oxygen and everything and so on. And the mechanical energy is koach. When we say koach, it's like force. Force is mechanical energy. So here it says that there are it says a famous thing, that there are 365 gidin. Which type? Big question. In general, we usually say 365 refers to the tendons, refers to the sinews, not to the blood vessels or the nerves, because there seems to be many more than that. But usually people associate it with the sinews. Now, since there's 365, and in a year of the sun, there's 365 days, not in a lunar year. In the lunar year, there's only 355. But in the solar year, there's 365. So each one of these sinews controls one day of the year. So then the Zohar says, Tisha BeAv, the 9th of Av, is the day of the sinew of the sciatic, of what's called the sciatic. We've been calling it the sciatic nerve, but really, when you take it out of the animal, it's not a nerve; it's a tendon. We call it nerve because I guess there's also a nerve there, but that when people suffer from sciatica, for instance, it's terrible pain. So it's talking about the nerve. It's not talking about the tendon's not inflamed. It's the nerve that has problems. So when you say sciatic nerve, it's common for people to associate it with a nerve. But really, when you clean the animal, it's a tendon. It's a tendon that you need to take out. That's why it's like a piece of wood. It has no taste. And what's that got to do with anything? Because what happened on Tisha B'Av? The temple was destroyed. Jerusalem was destroyed. Jerusalem is the Netzach. It's also Netzach. Okay? When you say Yerushalayim is Netzach. That's one of the clearest associations in all of Torah, that there's a connection between a city and a sphere. There's other cities for each one of the Sfirot. And because this is the tendon that, when it's not blemished, is the holiness of victory. We said this is what what represents the power of determination to keep going even when you don't have a mindset for it, even if you don't understand why. So when this was blemished, that's when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. So it had to be destroyed on this day, the day on which the Netzach is blemished. כמו שביעקב כתיב, ויזרח לו השמש, כך עתיד הקדוש ברוך הוא לרפאנו, לגאולנו במהרה בימינו אמן. In the same way that afterwards, after he was hurt by this man that he was fighting with, Yaakov had shemesh tzedakah umarpeh bichnafea. He had the sun shine on him, and the sun, it says, it will heal everyone in the future. So too, the Tzemach Tzedek completes this study with the same blessing that so shall Hashem heal us and redeem us soon in our days. So that's this mimer on Gida Nashe. A lot of very basic things, and Bezrat Hashem will continue tomorrow with a new one.
Never translated, right?
What?
This is not translated.
This was never translated, but I can send you the translation if you want.
I understand that.
Yeah.
That, it's never right.
Okay.
You know, it's a